Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Benson. I'm the owner of Mind Body Cheer, and I am so thrilled and excited to come to you today and talk to you about mindset and mental toughness. All right, to get started, I want you, from the comfort of your own home, to write down one word that would describe this current generation of athletes. That's right, dancers and cheerleaders, write one word that comes to your mind when you think of yourself and your team. Coaches, same thing, not about you though, but about your athletes. One word to describe this generation. If you're like most coaches, when I travel around the country working with programs, you probably, coaches, named lazy, use words like entitled, maybe even soft to describe this current generation. Athletes, how does that feel? Knowing that the adults in your life see you or your generation in that way. Coaches, I think it's really important that we recognize why this generation is acting in this way. Is it because they just are more like innately lazy, that they're just more innately entitled, that they're just soft? Or is it due to the culture that we have created? I'm sure by the tone of my voice and just by the fact that I asked this question, many of you are like, well, it's clearly the second. And you're right. We are the ones who created a culture where this generation has everything at their fingertips. And so they are merely a result of the culture that we have set up. I mean, the reality is, I think of how I was as an athlete and how I act now. There are things that I do that I'm mortified by. Like just the other day, I ordered something from Amazon and it was supposed to be delivered that night to a certain address. And when I got my little notification, it wasn't delivered to the address I sent. And I was so frustrated. Think about what that was like 2 decades ago. You need to get off your own booty, off the couch, go to the store, hope it was open, pick it up, go home, try and find parking. Like, it was way bigger of a deal. And now I literally just get on my phone, boop, 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 and pay. Something that could take like 15, 20 minutes takes 10 seconds. We are also changing. We are softer. We are more entitled. We are lazier. How many of you during the pandemic or previously would be like, oh, if I just had the time, I would do fill in the blank. And then we got 8 months to do it, and how many of us did those things? I'm sure many of you out there are thinking of excuses and reasons why, but the reality is you would have never had more time than you probably had in the last 8 months. I know that's a really tough pill to swallow, but I think it's important that we start this conversation with understanding, not finger pointing, but just understanding and removing the judgment of what our assumptions are, and learn and be open to understanding why. There is awesomeness in understanding why. When we search for the why, we start to feel less judgment. We start to feel less criticism. And those people that we're trying to impact are going to be more open to what we have to share. So coaches, if you understand and you've seen that some people, when they face challenges and setbacks, they do it with confidence and you're like, can't I clone you? But then you notice that you have some athletes or some individuals who will avoid failure at all costs. This conversation for the next hour is going to explain why. Despite our culture being set up in a way that makes things easier, we can create atmospheres or a culture in our dance program or in our cheer program that can help rewire the brain to make our athletes grittier, to help our athletes not avoid failure, but embrace it. See it as an opportunity to grow and improve. How many of you coaches are out there because you want to get rich coaching? Yeah, I am positive there are no hands up because coaching isn't going to get you there. You all are coaching because you love athletes and you love making a difference. This conversation is going to show you how. Mindset and mental toughness are going to be the tools that are going to help these young ladies and young men be successful forever. All right. My goal is for you to feel empowered at the end of this conversation and to understand what mindset is, where it comes from, and its impact on your athletes. Let's get started. 30 years ago, Dr. Carol Dweck was trying to understand and answer the question that I posed before. Why do some people seem to embrace setbacks and challenges and go for gold afterwards, and some people melt at the fear of failure or the sign that they might not be perfect? She realized that there's something called mindset that distinguishes these two groups of people. Those with a growth mindset and those with a fixed mindset. Dr. Dweck defines mindset as the way in which you view your talent, ability, and intelligence. So quite simply, how good are you at something? How easily do you learn? Or how smart you think you are? Now, really quick, I want to explain mindset is not you are growth or you are fixed. Rather, mindset is something that can change based on each choice or action you make. Similar to racism, I do not believe people are just simply racist or anti-racist. I do believe that people can fall on a spectrum. There can be times where a person can act racist or do something or say something that is racist, and that act was objectively racist. That does not mean that they wear this scarlet word or letter of "you are racist" and that it accurately describes the individual. Because there are probably times where that individual acts in an anti-racist way, where they use their privilege, where they use their knowledge to try and lend a hand and help pull up people who are struggling. There are probably times where they have their eyes open and they're seeing how their friends are not treated the same and they do something or say something to try and help them. It would not be fair or accurate to globalize somebody as one or another. I realize that conversation may be triggering for many of you, and if it is, you know what, I am sorry, but there is growth in that conversation. Whereas there's also growth here with mindset. Just like with racism or anti-racism, I believe mindset is similar. There are times when I will explain fixed mindset, and you'll probably notice ooh, I do that sometimes. But on the other side, I'm sure I'm going to say growth mindset, and you're going to recognize there are times or things that you do that are super growth minded. It does not mean you're bad or good. What it means is that keep going or let's make a different choice. It is that simple. So if you notice that I'm saying fixed mindset and it's describing you in certain ways, I ask you to give yourself some grace, forgiveness, and realize that it is not a sticker or a scarlet letter to wear on your shirt, but rather that act was. So now what are you going to do about it? All right, let's talk a little bit further on what separates growth mindset from fixed mindset. As I explained, fixed mindset is the belief that your talent, ability, and intelligence is fixed, meaning people, when they're acting in a fixed mindset way, are acting in a way that actually says to themselves, oh, I only have so much. It's a certain amount, or there's an innate level of talent, ability, intelligence that I have. So when they make a mistake, why do they freak out? Why do they fear failure? Why do they avoid challenges? Well, they see it as, ooh, I hit my limit. So they would say things like, I'm just not good at math. Because I only have a certain amount of math intelligence in my brain, and because I'm just not good at math, I can't possibly increase my knowledge of math. How many of you out there have said something like that? Or even, I'm just not flexible. Or cheerleaders, I'm only a main base. Oh, I'm only a flyer. I'm just not good at jumps. Is this hurting a little bit? I'm not wanting it to hurt. But sometimes the truth is we act in ways that unconsciously say that we only have so much talent, ability, and intelligence. And science, just sidebar here, would dispel that myth. The reality is our brain is malleable and adaptable, and it can change. That's the amazing thing about our brain. If something were to happen to your brain will start to fire in new ways and circumvent the problem area. Pretty phenomenal. Let's talk now about growth mindset and how when using your growth mindset, you see your talent, ability, and intelligence as something that can grow and improve through hard work, strong effort, and not giving up. Now, I want to move and talk a little bit about how a fixed mindset or growth mindset would act in situations like with failure, feedback from coaches, in terms of effort, adversity, achievements, and risks, and how these two mindsets differ. Let's start with failure. A fixed mindset has this belief that I need to be perfect. I do not want to make any mistakes, especially in front of other people, because, remember, unconsciously, I care what they think of me and how much talent, ability, or intelligence I'm showing them. So really, they're trying to be perfect to save their ego. Coaches, what happens when your team loses a competition or they don't hit that first full out? Do you flip out? Do you start screaming? Yeah, that would be an example of acting with a fixed mindset, where you have this desire that they are perfect and they don't make mistakes. I hear that. I hear the excuse you just made, whether out loud or in your head. That act is fixed mindset. It is okay to be frustrated. It is okay to know that they're better than what they just showed. But screaming and yelling, pointing out athletes and calling them out in kind of a negative, really attacking way, what are you telling your team, whether consciously or not? We don't allow mistakes in this gym. That is supporting the growth of a fixed mindset when you do that. Good news is I'm going to teach you how mindset is not actually, or growth mindset and facilitating it is actually not the easiest or softest way. Sometimes when I start talking to you coaches about, okay, now let's turn the microscope on you and see, you know what? There are things that you're doing that are very fixed-minded. A lot of coaches, their first instinct is to make excuses, place blame, or just turn me off. And many say things like, oh, you're just reinforcing athletes being soft. Really? What do you think is harder? Getting mad and screaming and yelling, or getting mad, biting your tongue, understanding what's happening, and getting back to the drawing board while keeping your cool and doing better? The second one's way harder. So I'm going to encourage you coaches, just be as open as you can and understand how our actions do also reinforce a fixed or a growth mindset. And the reality is you are not one or another. We talked about this. Our actions would fall in that category, and then you make a choice. Do I want to change that to being more growth-minded, or am I okay with that I'm reinforcing fixed mindset in my athletes, which is going to mean my athletes are going to try and be perfect. And when they make a mistake, they're going to flip out, which means they're not mentally tough. It's just a choice. Let's talk about failure within that growth mindset. I know this sounds crazy, but there are people who do this. When they make a mistake, they don't see it as a sign that they themselves are bad and awful or terrible. They literally see it as feedback. I know that when I'm working with my mental block athletes one-on-one and I'm reviewing the last session and what they know, I'm actually not asking how much they remember in terms of how smart they are. What I'm asking is actually trying to get feedback on how well I presented it. It's merely feedback. It's not Jeff's a good teacher or a bad teacher. It is, did they understand what I tried to express last week? If not, I go back to the drawing board and I try and find a new way to teach it to them, rather than a label or a sign that I have goodness or badness. Let's talk about feedback. Coaches, I kind of alluded to this. When somebody makes a mistake in your practice, how do you respond? Teammates, when a teammate of yours makes a mistake, how do you respond? There are actually two ways to be fixed-minded in this. One, when my teammate makes a mistake, I say nothing for fear that I'm going to hurt them, which you're essentially saying that you think that person can't handle it, or that you are worried about a negative reaction. Fixed-minded. Or they, if you are willing to be vulnerable as an athlete and somebody makes a mistake and you communicate that, if that person comes back to you and like bites your head off, that's another way that fixed mindset rears its ugly little head in a practice. Conversely, coaches, do you have athletes who only want to hear positives? Yeah, this is where you get to go, see? Yeah. You would be correct. That would be a sign of fixed mindset. So athletes, when you say things like, oh, I really am only motivated by positive praise, you're saying that you need fixed mindset praise, that you're unable to take criticism and learn and grow from it. Really quick, let's take a pause. How many of you out there, athletes or coaches, want to be average? How many of you have just like average goals, average expectations? You're okay with being just kind of like everyone else. I would, if I were a betting man, would put money on none of you raise your hand. Why? Because the mere action of doing extra work, like listening to this crazy man Jeff talking about mindset and mental toughness, probably means that you want to be elite. You want to be better than average. You have high goals and high expectations, and you wanting to know how to reach them. I think that's phenomenal. But unfortunately, this is where it gets tough. If you as an athlete only want to hear positive things, you have no way, there is no path to reaching elite. You must be able to handle criticism so that you can grow and learn. And that's what a growth mindset does. A growth mindset, when given feedback, they see it as an opportunity to be better. Even if someone's screaming at them, lock your dang leg, what is wrong with you? Would, in their brain, translate that as, okay, my coach is telling me I can lock my leg. I'm capable of doing it, and so I need to try harder. That's what happens inside of a growth mindset brain, whose neural pathways are able to not take criticism like that personally. With that said, coaches, that is not an invitation for you to cut off an athlete's head, because the fact that you're screaming and yelling at them is fixed-minded. But as an athlete, you can respond to the fixed-minded feedback in a growth mindset way. Imagine what a practice would be like if somebody were able to make a mistake and act in a fixed-minded way, and everybody else around the team responded with growth mindset. How much would that change the culture and feel of your everyday practice? That's the power of mindset. I cannot control other people's actions, but I can control my response to their actions. Let's talk a little bit more, but specifically this time about effort. Inside of a fixed mindset, because they view their talents, ability, and intelligence as fixed, meaning they only have so much, they are not ready to give a strong effort for a long period of time. Because if you had to give a lot of effort to accomplish something, it means you're just not good. You're not that talented. So let's do a school example, students. If you, to get a good grade on your science test, need to study 5 days before the test for an hour every day, are you willing to put in that effort? Or do you just see it as not worth it? Well, I don't like science, I'm just not good at science. Fixed mindset. So is, well, I always get good grades in science, so I don't need to really try that hard. I'm going to tell you a little story about an athlete that I worked with, or that I'm actually still working with. But this was a session from 3 weeks ago. I was asking her rose and her thorn. So what happened good, or what was a struggle this week? And her rose was I got an A on my math test. A lot of people's reaction would be, oh, congratulations, good job. You're going to learn how that is not where we want to praise. Instead, I asked her, hey, Caitlin, how much effort did you give? Meaning, like, how long did you study for a test? And with pride, she smiled, I didn't. And I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that your teacher did not challenge you and that you didn't really learn anything in that unit in math. She looked at me like I had 5 heads. The way some of you are probably looking at the screen right now. Yeah. If you got an A and didn't have to try, you didn't get better. You didn't grow your intelligence. You didn't get any smarter. And in fact, that's why a lot of athletes and coaches too, you all, when something bad happens, get so angry and frustrated because you're so used to getting things right away. Growth mindset is about making sure that you're able to give a good effort time and time again. That you're able to, in a growth mindset, give a strong effort when things get hard. That's when you put on the gas pedal and you really start trying. Not, oh, why would I try? Like, if I have to try, that means I'm not good. Fixed mindset loves shortcuts. Are you someone who loves shortcuts? Who wants to get the end result right away? It's called instant gratification. The opposite is delay of gratification. Those are two very distinct differences between fixed and growth mindset. So, delay of gratification is the ability to hold off the reward at the end for a long period of time, working and grinding. Whereas instant gratification is, I want it right now. I think of Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka. I want it now, Daddy! Very fixed-minded reaction. All right, let's talk about adversity. So adversity is, what do you do when something isn't going the way you want? So athletes, when you get injured, how do you respond? Do you still come to practice? When you come to practice, do you just sit there, do your homework, and sit on your phone? Or when you get injured, do you use that time to work on your weak areas? I know so many dancers out there can get more flexible. I know so many dancers out there who can start increasing the strength in their glutes and their hamstrings. And more times than not, you could probably do something that would not affect your injured area to help you come back better and stronger. So when adversity strikes, what do? Coaches, how many athletes do you know that when things got tough, they quit? They just gave up. Right now, in the pandemic, come on, everybody, this has been horrible. How many of you are like, oh, our season's going to be so different, so I'm going to quit, or it's not even worth it? That is a sign of a fixed-minded reaction. There are opportunities that have occurred and are occurring within the pandemic. This is an opportunity for you to literally change your culture. The whole mindset of your program can change right now. You can focus instead of on certain areas that you get stuck on. Like, we love to stunt, so we're only going to stunt. And you have terrible motions and bad jumps, and that's why you lose state every year. Why don't you use this time right now to focus on those weak areas? That is a growth mindset choice. So let's finalize adversity with, when your team has a bad practice, is it the end of the world? Or do you think and go home, what can we do better next time? What could we learn from our practice? Growth mindset and fixed mindset see achievements differently. In a fixed mindset, scientists have actually looked at MRI scans, so scanning of the brain. Inside a fixed mindset, what lights up are the areas of the brain that love rewards, that love being evaluated and scored. So they love finding if they get an A. That's the award center or reward center of the brain lights up. The instant gratification part of the brain lights up when getting a grade, when that person's anticipating finding out if they win. That is the most bright light part of their brain. Well, where and what part of the brain is most active inside of a growth mindset is a totally different part of the brain. In fact, it's like the learning part of the brain. It's the part of the brain that looks for ways to be better and looks for what has improved. It's a deeper feeling, longer lasting, and more understanding part of the brain. So let's think about that for just one moment. Based on the MRI scans of the reward center, when you get a grade or a place that you really appreciate, an A, first place, or the deeper part of the brain that when performing or when doing something focuses on their effort, their improvement, what they can learn from it, how to be better, where do you think confidence would lie? Based on the fact that I'm asking this question, you probably understand how growth mindset is where true confidence would lie. That's absolutely true. There's something that I like to explain to my athletes in terms of confidence. There are two types of confidence. There's what we call reactive confidence versus consistent confidence. Reactive confidence is feeling confident, good, proud after you do something well. Doesn't sound bad, right? But consistent confidence is, despite making mistakes, still believing in yourself and in your ability to achieve. Even after a bad practice, even after your stunt falls in the middle of the routine, do you still feel confident in yourself and your team? The problem with reactive confidence is that when things don't go your way, confidence goes out the window. Can you see how that would affect somebody's mental toughness? I only feel tough and resilient when things are going my way, but when things don't, I fall apart. Coaches, are you nodding your head, thinking that totally describes my team? Mindset is the foundation to changing mental toughness. So I'm going to ask you, as I continue to talk through this, to take a hard look at yourself, the way you present yourself and the words you use in practice, and ask, are you trying to facilitate a growth mindset? Are you focusing on those athletes who are working hard and not hitting that triple turn? Are you going to point them out and go, you know what, I love right now how Aisha, she has been working this triple turn at water breaks, before practice, after practice, and even though she's really struggling, she has improved so much. I love her effort. Or are you only focusing on Aaliyah over here who came in with a quadruple turn and is hitting her triple and going, I want everyone to look like this? Which coach are you? Now, I realize there's a time and a place for using both examples where, all right, I want to show Aaliyah over here, and I want all of you to watch so you can learn from her. There is a growth mindset in that. But if you're always praising the perfect, the best, the ones who didn't have to struggle, but they got it easily, you are unconsciously supporting that fixed mindset that says what matters most is how talented you are when you walk in the door. Those are the people that I care about. I also want to ask a culture question. Who's the hardest worker on your team? Is it the most talented athlete on your team? Is your most acted, in a way, growth-minded person, the person who acts with a growth mindset most often, is that the most skilled athlete on your team? My hope is it is. That would be a sign of a very strong culture. But when I travel around the world watching teams and programs who are looking for this improvement in mental toughness and culture, what I often see is that the most skilled athletes are often the laziest, are the first to shut down when things don't go their way or they get critiqued. They're the first ones to get emotional or to be talking when the coach is talking. That is a sign that that athlete is using a fixed mindset. And what I often see is those are the athletes who get praised the most. I know it's baffling. So coaches, I want you to be more objective and evaluate yourself in practices and how maybe some of your actions or inactions are supporting this fixed mindset. Let's move on and talk a little bit more about how risks differ between fixed and growth mindset. So inside of a fixed mindset, risks would be seen as an opportunity to fail. So because they have this fear of failure, they avoid things that are challenging. This is one of my favorite tools or techniques that I use with coaches. I start phrasing things in terms of, hey, would you like a challenge? Especially for the athletes that I work with, they know challenge is like a buzzword for a growth mindset. So they're often like, yeah, I want a challenge. Coaches, try that out. Try seeing what stunt groups or what athletes want to try a challenge. And when they're not able to do it the first time, how do they respond? All right, I'm going to flip this on its head really quick. I want to see if you challenge your athletes to be cleaner, to be tighter, to water down something in the routine, and then see the challenge as improving the technique. How many teams or athletes now are using a growth mindset by working hard, giving good effort, and being resilient? Or how do your team, or how does your team or your athletes respond with a fixed mindset, which would be like, why are we doing this? Can't we just do our harder skills? I don't want to work on my just regular leap. Why aren't we doing our switch leap? This is weird. This is too easy. But then they're landing with their feet apart like a sumo wrestler, or their feet are totally flexed, Or as a coach, you know what? I don't want to see your heel stretches in the air. Let's do switch up libs. Let's see who can do the cleanest, tightest lib position. Foot into the side, knee level, their base leg engaged, bases chest to chest. Why are we doing switch up libs like that? Like, we can already do them. Switch up heel stretch is easier. That's my favorite. When athletes say the harder skill objectively is easier for them. Such a sign of a fixed mindset. Jumping back into risks. A growth mindset sees a risk as an opportunity to grow and change. Before I explain to you one of my favorite research studies by Dr. Carol Dweck, who kind of explains risks and how it's seen in students, I want to talk about what you might see or hear in a practice that is fixed or growth. So, fixed-minded would be hearing or saying things like, I can't. I'm just not good at blank, or I'm just not flexible. It's not my fault. It's too hard. Using words like always, never, should, shouldn't, but I often laugh with my athletes and tell them, you know what? I don't want you to should on yourself. Should is a very, very fixed-minded word because there's shame associated with it. There's this idea that you must. I should totally do my homework. No, say what is true. I want to do my homework because I want to get a good grade, or I don't want to do my homework because I would rather watch TV. Say what's true. Using the word should is a guilt, shame-ridden word. I'm going to ask you to try and remove it from your vocabulary. Inside of actions of fixed mindset would be using excuses and blame. So I used the verbalized, it's not my fault earlier. Making or placing blame on others. Giving an inconsistent effort, which means not the same all the time, but like, oh, I love stretching. So when we stretch, I'm like in a pancake. But when we condition and we're trying to do core or shoulders or legs, I'm like slipping. When coach isn't looking, I'm not giving my best effort. Inconsistent effort is a fixed-minded action. Now, growth mindset would look like this or sound like this. I'm learning. The power of yet. I can't do it yet. I'm improving. Mistakes help me learn. I need to practice more when things don't go well. I just need to do more practice. I need to spend and commit more time. Giving 100% effort and working hard despite what's happening would be growth-minded actions. When you see the difference between these two, I know the difference is pretty obvious, and if I were to ask you a question, it's probably pretty easy to answer or distinguish between the two. What gets harder is being self-reflective and understanding that our reactions to things or the way in which our habits form, our first reaction to setbacks, failure, risks, adversity are often fixed-minded. I want to remind you that just because your first reaction is fixed-minded does not make you fixed mindset or some like terrible person. It is merely an opportunity to make a different choice. Ladies, gentlemen out there, I teach this stuff. You're watching a video. Let me give you an example of something that literally happened to me yesterday. This week, I've been struggling to try and put together my first presentation on mental blocks and performance anxiety. Objectively, the easiest subject for me to talk on because I literally use the information every single day. I've probably already put in 7 or 8 hours, and I'm only halfway done. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to try and move on. I love mindset and mental toughness. Why don't I use this presentation that I have and talk through it and help educate coaches and athletes? In my second take, ran through it, felt good about it, started listening to it in the background as I was doing other work. I'm like, all right, sounds good. And then I go and look and I realize that as I was shifting like I am now between slides, you could see like all of my notes and you could see what was coming up next in my PowerPoint presentation. And I was mortified. I was so upset because I thought I got it done quickly and easily and I thought I did a great job. And my first reaction was frustration. Is anybody else's like bells ringing? Fixed mindset, fixed mindset, fixed mindset. Yeah, my reaction was fixed mindset. That doesn't make me a hypocrite when I'm talking to you. It makes me human. Congratulations, Jeff. You're human. So as I was talking to a very good friend of mine about the presentation, I shared it with her and I explained like, you know what? I'm just not in a place to be growth minded right now. I'm really frustrated. But over time, I was able to recognize there were some things in that video that I actually didn't like. And now I have an opportunity in this video to do better. So though it was not as easy as I thought, it doesn't make me less talented, less skilled. It does not make me a bad presenter. My actions or the way I react to it is what matters. At first I was frustrated, but I was able to move on. And now I'm giving you what I think is a higher quality presentation. So it was worth it. That's how mindset works. Can't wait. This is probably my favorite part of mindset coming up next. This is one of Dr. Dweck's research projects that she did with 400 fifth graders that were distributed into two heterogeneous groups, meaning diverse. Diverse in race, nationality, socioeconomic status, male and female, high scoring and low scoring students. Totally mixed and totally random. She broke them up into two different groups, and she and her researchers gave them nonverbal IQ tests. So the first group was given intelligence praise, meaning, wow, when they finished their first test, wow, you are so smart. While the second group was praised on effort. Wow, I love how hard you worked on that. Yeah, that was it. After the first test, they were either given, the group one was given praise on how smart they were, and group two was praised on how hard they worked. The researchers then went to a second test. They asked, would you like to take a harder version of that test we just took, or would you like to take an easier version? Based on what you know, on mindset, what do you think happened with the students who were praised based on their intelligence? You are right. 67%, 2/3 of the students who were told they were smart chose the easier test. I hope that's blowing your mind like it did mine. It had nothing to do with their actual intelligence or how they actually scored in school. It didn't even have to do with the test score they got. They were given an easy test. Everyone scored well. But the group that was praised on how smart they were, 67% said no, I don't want the harder test. As you probably assume, the group that was praised on effort, again, it was one sentence. That was it. Wow, you worked really hard. 92% chose that harder option. Coaches, I hope you're understanding why I'm talking about the way in which we talk and the way in which we praise our athletes is vital in either supporting the growth of a growth mindset or facilitating more fixed-mindedness. The researchers then moved on to a third test. And now this was what they would consider like an impossible test. Like everybody was going to struggle. It was well above that fifth grade level. Well, group one, the intelligence praise group, the researchers realized that they started to become frustrated. They gave up early. Whereas the second group that was praised merely on how hard they worked harder, worked longer, and enjoyed the process more afterwards. Meaning the researchers were like, hey, what did you think? How was that? Oh, they liked it more. They liked challenges just because of the praise they were given. Not how good are you, but how hard you worked. All right, here we go. Last part of the research. Researchers then brought the students in and were going to give them, or did give them, a fourth test. Now, this fourth test was just as easy as the first test. How do you think the two groups scored? The first group scored 20% lower on that last test than they did the first test, while 30% of that second group scored higher. Scored 30% higher. When we're talking about mental toughness, resilience, and mindset, we are literally talking about the thing that can change your culture and your abilities, athletes. Again, it's not about just already having a growth mindset. It's about purposefully changing when you're realizing you are acting in a fixed-minded way, choosing a growth mindset. Before we finish up, I'm sure some of you out there are like, Jeff, give us some more concrete things that we can do. One of my favorite strategies is called BCR. Very simple. That is, I want you to be aware when you are using that fixed mindset. Don't let it be like a thing on your team. Just like be aware of it. Oh, wow, I'm being fixed-minded right now. I'm being really rigid. I'm wanting to be perfect. And then what I want you to do is challenge that by changing your habit. Make a different choice. So C, make a different choice. Why can't I hit my full-up switch-up? Everybody else is hitting it. I'm judging my value based on everyone else. Fixed-minded reaction. Oh, wow, I'm totally comparing myself to other people right now. B. Okay, make a choice. All right. I'm not wanting to do better when I'm doing that. I actually feel worse. So my choice is to focus on one thing at a time. I'm going to try and do one thing different. All right. I am going to try and use my legs more. All right, let's try and use my legs more. And let's say it's better, but it doesn't hit. My reaction is probably going to be like, oh, this is pointless. Look at everyone else. Oh, I'm doing it again. Be aware. Make a choice. All right, you know what? I'm going to choose to focus on how that was better. Hey, can I get some help? Growth mindset action. Can I get some help? Can someone tell us what's going on here? And finally, R. R is repeat the change. The C, the choice, repeat that change over and over and over again. And what will happen inside your brain is that your brain routes will change and you will be less reactive when you make mistakes in the future. It will not change overnight, but it will change, I promise. And when it does, I am a testament to this. You are going to be happier, you're going to be more resilient, and you are going to be more mentally tough. Let me give you one more strategy. This is what I call the brain growth formula, and it's also pretty simple as BCR. The brain growth formula is this. You simply, when you are finished with something, ask yourself, number one, the first question, which is, what did I do better? You may be wondering, does it matter which question? Yes, it matters what order the questions are asked. What did I do better? All right, so think of my example. What did I do better? I used my legs more, and it improved my stunt. Step 2, make one, coaches, this is for you, make one change for next time. Maybe it's effort, maybe it's ask for help and find out that you're catching with bent arms, so you need to engage your arms more. Think of one thing to do better for next time. Now try it again. Follow that formula. Play, pause, repeat. Play, pause, repeat. Over and over and over again. That's the brain growth formula. Here's the exception. Do we always do better? No. I hear like a group of youth age out. No, we don't always get better. The truth is we don't always get better. So after the first question, if you didn't get better, say why. So answer the question why. 90% of the time, it's because you didn't give 100% effort. So what do you think I would suggest your number 2 be? Just to review, number 2 of our brain growth formulas, name one thing to do better next time. That's right. I would suggest you try and give a better effort. All right, let's end talking about one of my favorite quotes in the whole wide world from Gandhi. Gandhi said, "Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths." Oh, this is amazing. When you experience hardship and decide not to surrender, that is strength. Thank you all so much for listening to me today and helping grow your brain and choosing to not be average, but try and reach your goals to be elite. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me at mindbodycheer@gmail.com. If you like this sort of stuff, feel free to check out my 2 other videos that you all have access to on performance anxiety and mental blocks, as well as team culture. Feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Jeff Benson, Instagram, Mind Body Cheer, Jeff Benson, Facebook, and Twitter. Again, you can also check out my regular account, so mindbodycheer.com, that website, or finally, let me repeat it again, mindbodycheer@gmail.com. I would love to answer any questions you have on how to reach champion mindset. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Have an awesome day and stay healthy. Bye.